part of what I'm trying to remind people of as I travel the country, including some very conservative places, is that most Americans believe in decency, believe in democracy, believe in government working for the people instead of the other way around. Most Americans believe, for example, that when the person in charge of the government makes $1 billion on crypto deals while in public office, something is deeply wrong with what's going on in this country. I'm of the quaint notion that when you go into public service, as a general rule, your income ought to dip a little bit, maybe, compared to what you're making in business versus raking in $1 billion at the expense of people who trusted you. And yet we're being told that we're the only ones who think what we think. We're being made to believe that we're alone, when the reality is you're not alone. And you're not crazy if you think we can do better than this. You're not alone if you believe that the wealthiest people in this country ought to be paying more of their fair share and not less. Let me also, since I am among my neighbors in Michigan, just take a moment to thank you for welcoming me to this state. I have become a Michigander not by birth but by marriage. I married into this place, and I'm very glad that I did. Jocelyn and I are raising our children, Gus and Penelope, here. We moved here so that we could be close to his family, and it has been such a fantastic community, such a fantastic place for us. And I'll tell you, I'm crisscrossing the country right now, speaking up for causes and for candidates that we believe in. And this is the time of year where every time I go over to Cherry Capital Airport and get on a plane, I'm thinking, why am I leaving? What am I doing? I'm still practicing becoming a Northerner. I'm still working on refining my the Cherry Festival tradition of complaining about the Cherry Festival traffic, swearing up and down that you'll never go down there with all the traffic and then going anyway, and all of the wonderful things that come with living here. We were taking the kids out to a family gathering in Leelanau County a couple days ago, and passed by one of those signs, one of those America 250 displays. There was an eagle and a flag, and our kids are just getting to that age where they're starting to recognize symbols and ask about them. And our son, who's addicted to that PBS show Wild Kratts, the one about the animals, was talking about the eagle, wanted me to know what kind of animals the eagle liked to eat. And then Penelope, who our daughter is really into learning about things like flags, like that's the American flag. And I said, yeah, and then below it, do you know what that says? And I can't quite read yet, but it said, "We the people." It was this image of the Constitution. I said, "What's that?" I said, "Well, that's something called the Constitution." "Well, what's that?" You know, if you've had kids, you know the sequence of questions that opens up. I said, "Well, it's the basic law. It's the law that all of the other laws are checked against. It's like an instruction manual for government." And she thought about that for a second. She said, "Well, who does it?" I think she meant who does government. Who does it? Is it Judge Judy? I got a couple questions for my in-laws next time we go over there about why our daughter wants to know about justice. She was half right. She understood that had something to do with leadership. I thought about it, and then I thought that we'd be a lot better off, actually, compared to the state of affairs in Washington right now. Because right now, what's going on in terms of the leadership of this country is an affront to the founding principles of this nation. And at a time when we're marking 250 years of this American experiment, I know so many of us are so upset to see what has happened. And part of what I'm trying to remind people of as I travel the country, including some very conservative places, is that most Americans believe in decency, believe in democracy, believe in government working for the people instead of the other way around. Most Americans believe, for example, that when the person in charge of the government makes $1 billion on crypto deals while in public office, something is deeply wrong with what's going on in this country. I'm of the quaint notion that when you go into public service, as a general rule, your income ought to dip a little bit, maybe, compared to what you're making in business versus raking in $1 billion at the expense of people who trusted you. And yet we're being told that we're the only ones who think what we think. We're being made to believe that we're alone, when the reality is you're not alone. And you're not crazy if you think we can do better than this. You're not alone if you believe that the wealthiest people in this country ought to be paying more of their fair share and not less. You're not alone if you think that the wealthiest country in the world ought to have the best funded public schools in the world, as a show of how much we care about education, right? You're not alone if you are skeptical of anybody telling you, well, we just can't have nice things in this country. We just can't possibly have great roads and decent rural hospitals and excellent schools at a moment when the wealthiest people in the country are paying less in their tax rates than the nurses who work in those hospitals and the teachers who teach in those schools and the workers who work on those roads. You're not alone if you think that way. Most of us believe that we would be better off investing our national treasure in our own communities than spending it on a foreign war that has all of us paying more for gas and diesel and fertilizer and everything else we count on right here at home. But here's the thing. There's so much focus, and understandably so, on everything that is going wrong in Washington that you could be forgiven for thinking that one office is the only office that matters. When the truth is, there's only so much we can do about that office at this moment. Although, believe me, I'm working on it. But so many of the most important decisions that affect our lives, that affect our health care, that affect our education, that affect our economy, are made closer to home. And that is why it is so, so very important that we have the right leadership in this state. And it's why I am proud to officially endorse Jocelyn Benson to be our next governor. Just think about some of the things that we're fired up about at the national level. For example, the fact that they are taking those very same pieces of legislation that slash taxes for the wealthy, and they're using it to kick people off Medicaid. Well, many of the most important decisions about Medicaid are made at the state level, which is why you need a leader who understands that we ought to use the tools of Medicaid to make sure that more people have access to health care, not less. It's true with infrastructure. Look, I was very proud of the work we did at the U.S. Department of Transportation on everything from making sure that we got a new bridge at the Hudson River tunnels, to making sure we got new passenger boarding gates at TVC, to putting in that roundabout at 72. Sorry about all the time of the construction, but we got it done, right? And tens of thousands of projects like that. But even that, federal transportation spending, those decisions on what to do with most of that funding are actually made in the governor's office and in the state legislature. And I'm mentioning the state legislature because it is very, very important that we deliver for Governor Jocelyn Benson a Democratic trifecta and the kind of state, House, and Senate leadership she needs to get the job done. An economy where the inputs for everything that we count on are being driven up by the decisions that are being made in Washington. By the way, I'd like to thank you, Gary, for your involvement in this. As strongly as I feel about politics, I feel particularly strongly about the subject of cheese. So I would love to have a conversation later on about making sure that you succeed. But the reality is, for farmers and small business owners like the fantastic brewery where we're gathering right now, we very much look forward to sampling the fruits of your labor a little bit later tonight, and all the way through to our auto industry. It is so critically important that we have the right kind of leadership. Now, I've known Jocelyn Benson for a long time. I have seen her from her earliest days running for office being relentlessly focused on actually delivering. Some of the unglamorous blocking and tackling kind of stuff that a government delivery nerd like me can love, not everybody sees every day. But I never could have imagined the ways in which she would be tested in this job. Secretary of State's supposed to be a pretty uninteresting job, frankly. It's not supposed to be the kind of thing where you have to go through what her family went through with armed protesters showing up at her home as she was screening a Christmas movie for her child. She's not supposed to have to deal with pressure from the President of the United States to do something illegitimate with our democratic processes. But the combination of courage and competence, that relationship of just rolling up your sleeves and getting it done and showing integrity in doing so, is something that we need more than we ever thought we did in the office of the Secretary of State, and we're going to need it in the office of Governor, too. That's part of why I'm excited to support Jocelyn Benson. We have benefited in this state from the leadership of a great governor in our friend Gretchen Whitmer. She has brought so much growth to this state, so much benefit to our communities, and people around the country and around the world have seen how important the office of the governor of Michigan is. It is so important now that we have leadership that can get ready for what comes next. So whether it's making sure that the Department of Motor Vehicle, by the way, I just got my tags, and Jocelyn and I made sure we had them on the license plate, just beat the buzzer this year, but making sure that customer service is the way it ought to be in those customer-facing dimensions of the job. So many more of which will be under her leadership as governor, but also making sure that something as fundamentally important to the lifeblood of our republic as the integrity of our elections is in good hands when there's pressure to do otherwise. That kind of integrity is going to matter more than ever. So, look, I'm not just here as a Democrat. I'm actually excited about the independents and quite a few what I like to call future former Republicans who are joining ranks to make sure we have some reasonable voices here. Because let me tell you also, one thing I didn't know would happen until I moved to Michigan was the diet of commercials that our family and that I were exposed to changing. Just reminding me just how bonkers some of the people on the other side who want to be governor are. And I don't know which one of them we're going to get. But what I know is none of them is consistent with the values and the interests of the communities that we live in, or is going to do the right thing for our families. We know that we have got to have the kind of leadership that is rooted in the community, that understands that public service is about integrity and serving the people, that government needs to serve us and not the other way around, and that looks to the future. I know this is a complicated time to be an American, but I actually believe we could look back on this is going to sound strange. I believe we could look back on the 2020s with pride. Maybe not for how it started out, but for what happened next. That will have the kind of leadership that will enable us to say, by the time that our kids know exactly who's in charge of our government and are asking questions about what we did back in the 2020s when everything was on the line, that we can say that we took the steps that are needed to set up our future generations for success. Those are the decisions that are in front of us right now. And they will come to a head, one conversation, one door knock, one canvas, one phone call, one text at a time. Which brings me to the last thing I want to say. Talked a little bit about why Jocelyn Benson will be a great governor. I've talked a little bit about the leadership we have versus the leadership we could have in Washington. But the most important people in this equation are you and whoever you can get a hold of. Because for anybody who will see an Instagram reel of me or a news clip of Jocelyn tonight, there are people who you can reach who will not be reached any other way. And I'm talking about the folks who share your values but are starting to lose hope in the political process. And I'm talking about people who maybe aren't always exactly where you are politically, but who understand that things need to change. And I'm asking you, urging you, to reach out to everybody that you can think of and remind them of what's going on in this all-important Michigan governor's race. So are you ready to do that? Are you ready to volunteer to knock on some doors? Are you ready to reach out to some friends and family? Are you ready to find that disagreeable uncle on the family text thread and say, hey, maybe this time we can do something different? Are you ready to make sure that Jocelyn Benson is the next governor of the great state of Michigan? So am I, and if you follow through and we follow through, we can't lose. We're going to have a lot to celebrate this November. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being so committed. Go spread the